My name's Howey, and I'm 17-year-old climate activist and also vegan and environmentalist from Guilin, China. And I have been doing the school strike for climate in mainland China for more than 13 months now through the street activism, planting trees, that campaign called Plants for Survival, as well as the offline climate documentary screening called Saturday Cafe. Yeah, and I'm very pleased to be here and to have this interview and share my story to people around the world to inspire them to care about the planet and our home.
That's
Yeah.
great. And can I just ask you when did you first become interested in the issue, and why did you decide to take action?
Yeah. Like in December 2018, I um had um I watched An Inconvenient Truth by Al Gore, and that's the first time I know how climate crisis affect the whole human civilization as well as the entire ecosystems. And I'm so touched by Al Gore's commitments and the self-sacrificing spirits to save next generation's home. And so that I started to realize things about climate, because before that I don't have any concept of the word climate. I remember that in 2015, when the Paris Agreement is signed, and when the COP21 um, like attended by 194 countries leaders in Paris, and our President Xi went there and to sign the agreement. At the time, although I am a 7th grade student at middle school, but in the society there is some discussions about it, and I also heard about this. But at that time, I feel that I really don't see there is any words for President Xi to went there to sign the agreements, and I don't know what is so-called climate and why world leaders all came to Paris and signed it. So in December.
So I guess what you're saying, if I just to make sure I'm understanding correctly, is that you think that the signing of the Paris Accords, or the Paris Agreement, what you decide to call it, hasn't really done anything.
Nope. I mean, in 2015, that time I am a 7th grade student at middle school, and at that time, because I don't receive any climate or education about what is the so-called climate and what is its importance to human civilization and the ecosystems. So that time I just fully cannot understand why President Xi and all the world leaders went to Paris and signed the so-called Paris Agreement.
So obviously, from your point of view, you think that as a force, the whole the global coalition of countries are not really taking this seriously, and they're not doing enough to tackle the climate crisis. Is that what you think?
Like, is it this question? You don't understand my previous talking about the 2015 Paris Agreement, or it is another question?
Sorry, to be clear. So it's a not an isolated Paris Agreement question. It's a question as a whole. It's like the global community in how seriously they're taking the climate crisis issue. So do you think that as a whole the countries are not taking it seriously enough?
I think, of course, every countries do not treat climate crisis really as an emergency and to put the climate actions as their priority in every level. And that's of course because although all the countries meet their current goals, and to meet their NDC, the global temperature rise in the end of this century will still go to average 3.2 centigrade. And that's definitely not meets the Paris Agreement promise. Yeah.
No, that's correct. If I could just talk a little bit, going back to China, do you feel, I mean, you talked a little bit about your education, about what kind of education you received about climate change. Do you feel there's enough awareness in China about climate change? Do you think other people care enough about it, they talk about it, or what is the discussion in China around this issue?
I think most people, especially adults, have the same level of conscious, like me in the 7th grade, that don't know why those people doing these so-called climate actions and talk about the so-called climate. They just don't understand. And that's of course related to, it is very lag in China in the newspaper to see the narrative in the newspaper that relates the specific and miniature manifestation of climate catastrophe to the climate science. Because in all the narratives and news, in general, the reporters just report in a way that how this affects the local communities, and how the police or the army going to save those people from these disasters, but not relate that and use these uh, disasters to alert people about the science.
Do you think that
So
sorry, I'm just gonna add. Do you think that other young people around your age, do you feel there's other people that feels the same way as you do about this?
I don't think so,
No.
and yeah, um, I think because Guilin, it is the city of mine is a small city, and we don't have it has really few civil societies here, or have really few environment and climate organizations, not like big cities in Shanghai or Beijing. And in among my peers level of understanding of environments or the eco things is like to reduce the plastic usage, and to um, turn off the lights, and to turn off the taps when you don't use water, and to do not waste any food, and
Right.
like don't destroy nature in a direct way, but like don't have uh, any ideas about like um, yeah. And also I remind that the most problem in people's, or the most obstacles in people's mind is that people still separate the economic growth and um, the tackling of climate
Mm,
crisis.
mm.
Yeah, although the world GDP is related to the world energy production, but also if people don't, if humans don't treat the climate crisis fast enough in a massive way, the economic breakdown and climate catastrophe will happen meanwhile, and it will cause the catastrophe to the whole human civilization, and it is the real biggest threat in our history, human history.
So in terms of, from your point of view, in terms of what the Chinese government is doing to tackle climate change, I guess you feel they could do more than they do right now.
Yeah, of course. Every yeah,
so
every
obviously,
government should do. Sorry.
yeah. Sorry, no, I was going to add that obviously across the world, that people talk about China as obviously moving towards being the world's largest economy, and also the one that has obviously the highest CO2 emissions, but also the ones to have the highest installment of renewable energy. So a lot of people say that
Sorry.
China is installing more renewable energy or clean energy than any other country in the world.
Sorry. What is your last sentence?
So it's just
China
that,
have
China are installing more renewable energy than any other countries in the world. But then again, they're also
oh,
one of the largest emitters as well, isn't it? So it's a mixed picture, isn't it?
yeah, and yeah. Um, China, of course, doing the a lot about the renewable energies, and like in recent 5 years, China's solar and um, solar electricity production and also the wind electricity production is like larger than any countries of the world, and 99% of the electricity cars are produced by China. But at the same time, China is the most like country has the most carbon emission. But also, I think um, so that China have very big responsibility, both for Chinese governments, but also the people and our Chinese new youth to really stand out and to take the responsibility. And also, China with other developing and underdeveloped countries need to demand developed countries to stop using any coal power plants and to stop using um, electricity fire to um, like burning the coals to produce the electricity. And for developing countries need to stop building new coal power plants. And in this, and also developed countries need to give the developing countries the financial and technological support every year. And
Yeah, so I guess it's not only I guess from your point of view what happens in China, but also what China is doing overseas, right? So obviously China is and also the world's banks. So most countries owe money to China, so they fund all kinds of different kind of development projects overseas. So another essence is like the amount of money that Chinese banks loans to coal projects in other parts of Asia. So I guess that's also something that needs to be looked at, isn't it?
yeah, I cannot like catch your last sentence. I'm sorry.
No, sorry. Maybe I was just saying that in terms of one issue is what's happening in China, but also what's happening with Chinese money in other countries, right?
Yeah. I still cannot get it very
Okay,
well.
fine. Okay, well, we'll move on to another question, and that's fine. So, in your mind, what is your demand? What would you like to see happening? What would you like to see the Chinese government doing now to take the climate challenge seriously?
Um, Chinese governments with all the other governments in the world need to put this in a priority and first to face this crisis and to act right now and to transform the whole civilization in every aspect in the society. Like in agriculture, we need to first to stop and reduce the consumption of beef because these large animals uh, will release lots of methane and carbon to the atmosphere, and we need to change the eating diet to more plant-based and also to change the diet from large animals to small animals. But currently, China's eating diet is the opposite from small animals to large animals, and the promotion and advocating of the veganism and vegetarian is vegetarianism and plant-based diets is still very lack. And even like last year when I visited the China Civil Climate Action Network, and I met one of its leaders. And this leader, like, they finally rejects cooperation with a Germany like a food foundation and to promote the veganism project in China because this leader still have the stereotype that veganism is bad for health and yeah, so the plant-based education need to promote in like everywhere in newspapers, in radios, in televisions, yeah, and also yeah, this is from the agriculture and also uh in the energy use in the urban and rural the planning practices we need to in the transportation and the buildings we need to save the energy as well as to develop the energy efficiency and also in every decisions this is as a whole. I mean, in every decision the government made, it needs to consider the climate risks, and we must don't waste any money to invest the fossil fuels. And in the aspects of aviation and shipping, as well as the industry, we must put the climate to align with the with the Paris Agreement as a condition. After we consider these 1.5 degrees, we can only after that we can talk about industry and aviation and the shipping. Yeah.
Do you think that it has become easier for China not to do a lot because, for instance, one of the big players, the US, has decided not to do anything at all? Do you understand what I'm saying? I'll repeat the question.
Can you repeat it?
Yeah, I'll repeat the question. So do you think that China has not done a lot because they feel other countries should do more first? For instance, like the United States of America has like dropping out of the Paris Accord and toned down the importance compared to like the previous presidency. So do you think China is saying that, okay, before we do more, other countries have to do more as well?
I don't agree with that, although it is very like I think some kind of common ideas of many Chinese people. Even like the leader of China Civil Climate Action Network, I mentioned just now, uh, she also think that like America created the Paris Agreement so that, and also China is promoting the renewable energy in the large scale. So China is already done enough. And like another official I talked with last year, it is the Minister of Ecological and um, Environmental Department of Guangxi, which is our province, and he think that China's policy is enough and China's environment is getting better and better.
Right.
And for this opinion, my message is that this is a global issue and global issues needs a global solution. And we cannot say others doing bad so that we can lower our action level, because China is also the country that affects by the climate catastrophe the most. If the temperature rise to 4 degrees, then in Guangdong province it will have 100. It will have 12 million of people need to move to anywhere else. And in currently we can see many miniature manifestation of climate catastrophe is destroying the infrastructure as well as disrupt people's livelihoods. And in these months in China, in southern China, the massive floods have already affected like um, 14 millions of Chinese people and make 140 people die. And yeah, so China cannot um, lower its standard even if America is quit or other is not doing so well, because ourselves are not doing enough as well, of course, because China's current um, uh, action level will lead to 4 centigrades in the end of this century.
So obviously, what you're doing now, you're going on the street and you're protesting. You're holding up placards and with messages for the government.
Actually, I don't call it protest now. I call it advocate, because currently, like I am recruiting more Chinese young people to
Great.
stand with me, and but I'm also holding the placards on the walking streets and in front of the schools, and also doing the dying advocates in the in the places of interest. And also sharing questionnaires, holding climate uh, climate documentary screening.
Right. So
Etc.
you are finding other people who are willing to join you in the cause.
There are some people who support me and doing the climate activism every week with me in the recent weeks, but I haven't find so determined people who say I have the same goal with you to really expose this biggest issue to Chinese people and Chinese government yet in China. But I'm of course there is those people have the same commitment, but I didn't find them yet,
Yeah.
or they have other ways to do the activism. And also there is still a large amount of people that is the potential of the activism, and they just need to receive more information about the crisis and to push.
So obviously it's a bit of a risky thing you're doing, because like going on the street and criticizing the government is not something that the Chinese government like to see, is it?
Um, if a quick answer is a short, if it's a
Sure.
short answer, then yes.
Okay.
Because like when I protest in front of the Guilin People's Government for 7 days, and at that time, I like post my protest photo on my Twitter every day and have some international media coverage. And that time, on the 7th day, they just interrogated me and my parents for 4 hours separately. And also like in the um, 13 months I do the climate activism, they also call my parents for many times to, especially when I have some international media coverage and have some international influence. They will call my parents and call my school to ask my parents to let me go back to school and to stop the climate activism, and try to let my parents to persuade me. Uh, yeah, and
So
this
does does
obviously, yeah,
does that
means that they
that
don't
make you
like.
scared to continue what you're doing?
No,
Wow.
because uh, when people do the non-violent civil disobedience, um, we must acknowledge that the um, the obstacles and the risks that we must face, and this is just a process. This is just a essential and will happen step. And if finally we don't have suppression, and um, the um, the fossil fuel industry or our enemies' power is getting estimates, then if really we come to that stage, then we already success. Yeah, and in this process, the suppression is just a step that we must face. And when we're facing this suppression, the courage and unyielding, and also the non-violence principle, it is, and also to showing solidarity with the other activists, is just the um, most important factors we face the suppressions and obstacles by authorities.
What does your parents and your friends think about what you're doing?
I rephrase the question, is that what do my parents and my friend
Yeah.
think about my
Yeah.
action? Okay. Like before I first go to the protest, uh, the strike in front of Berlin People's Government on in last May. I mean the May in 2019. At the time, because I don't have any experience, or I haven't heard or seen any civil societies or just people to do this activism, protest, demonstrations, assemblies, uh, and there is no any news about this in the, yeah, there is no any news or broadcast radios about this. so that time I'm really afraid of this, and I imagine so many times about what I will face if I went to the if I just stand in front of the governments or sitting there. And I even thought I will going to die because of this. And I also asked my parents and my friends what's their opinion about this. And at the time they said this will affect your own development, personal development, and um, also some of my relatives describes how the Chinese prison looked like. That time, I just have some concepts of the consequences that I might face, but because I think if China don't take the responsibility and China's youth don't join this amazing movement that it is the uh, new era starts. That means um, that is uh, we young people um, don't our young people lift all the differences between us, like the nations, races, colors, or ages, any those things. We left those, and just because we are as the same species, we come together and to fight for each other, fight for a livable future. And uh, this solidarity just um, just inspired me so much, and it is the hope for for me and also all my peers. So I think in this new era, the time when new era starts, um, the new era that all the young people show solidarity to each other and united. China's youth cannot um, crop out and don't join this amazing movements, this inspiring actions. And I think if China do not join that, then it is a shame for China. And if me as Chinese um, see this history after maybe 20 or 30 years, it is obviously it is a shame for Chinese people that no one stand out in this historical event. So although my parents like threaten me, sorry, threaten me about the consequences that I might face, but if no one will take the responsibility to join this movement, then I might be the person. Um, so that time, although they like remind me not to do this, but I also do that. Yeah. And after I got interrogation by the police, my parents just reject me very seriously, and they fight with me like every day. And in one day, they confiscated my electronic devices and locked me at home not to receive any interviews. And that time I fought with my parents for 8 hours, and it is really exhausting that time.
Must be really
And
hard. Must be really hard.
yeah, and um, yeah, and like after that, I went to I left Guilin because my parents just reject me so much that I almost cannot live freely in Guilin. So, and I cannot develop the movement. I cannot live freely, let alone develop the movement. So I left Guilin and to find support. And I drifted about China for 2.5 months and visited 7 cities, and sometimes with other friends like that, the 14-year-old animal rights activist Nossi, and yeah, and I protest along the ways governments, and also attend the summits all about sustainability and the climate, and about innovative business for social goods, the permaculture centers, and the summer schools that I can study the academic courses about climate activism, etc. Just I attend any activities I can find, and I can have the chance to go in and talk to everyone I can meet about my story, to inspire them or get the advice from them, or to see if there is chance to cooperate and develop the movement. And um, in this trip, my parents don't support me, so they just don't give me any financial support, and I don't have any other support. And I slept in everywhere I can find, like 24 hours shops, 24 hours bookstores, 24 hours restaurants, the hall of the hotel, the second floor corridor of the youth hostel, benches of university, dormitory of the university, couch surfing, friends' home, everywhere. And I ate baozi, which is a snack in China that you can buy in the convenience shop. It is cheap and convenient for 2.5 months. And yeah, and in this trip, it's really exhausting. And every morning I wake up, I will think about today, who I can meet to find support for the climate activism. And at night, about 6 p.m., I will think where I can sleep at night.
Wow.
And yeah.
Where are you now? You're not back with your parents yet, are you? No.
Yeah, I'm safe now, and I'm in Guilin, in my
Okay.
hometown, and
Great.
now I live separately with my parents. Yeah.
That's good to hear. That's good to hear. So does your parents now let you do what you want to do in terms of the climate activism?
Like currently they are passively support me. Like they will attend my Fridays for attend the Saturday climate documentary screening and activist meeting. Yeah, and also to see what I'm doing on Fridays for Future street activism. And they allow me to do the interviews, um, maybe because they understand some kind of, if I inspire more people by sharing my story, then my anxiety about the climate and the climate crisis can can be aware by more people.
Just finally, before we finish, are you optimistic about the future? It's a big question.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, I think maybe my attitude about towards this is change from time to time, and sometimes I'm very pessimist, and because mostly I'm doing the climate activism alone, and the change is still nowhere in sight, and people just live as usual as before. And although the whole movement, we have strike, students have skipped school for like almost 2 years now, but there is the global emissions are still rising, and adults are still don't wake up. Yeah, so sometimes I really pessimist and don't feel there is a livable future for us, and this cannot this goal cannot be achieved. But um like but when I study more about how a nonviolent civil disobedience movement goes, and to learn about some practical ways we can make change and to mitigate the climate deniers' power, and to inspire and use the um, positive attitude to touch people, then I can also see the hope, and uh, yeah, I can also have the motivation and have effective climate action to yeah to try to inspire more people.
This has been a really interesting talking to you, and you are clearly a very determined and also a brave individual. What you're doing is I think it's very brave and courageous. So I wish you all the best of luck, and hope you manage to recruit many people, and all goes well with your activism campaigns.
Yeah, and I'm very grateful to do this with you, and thank you for all of your work to also have the same goal to have a greener world for all the generations and all the species.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you, and good luck.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks a lot. And also, may I share the message to
Yeah, of course.
people
Please share a message. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. My message is that every one of us can take the time to really sit down and to close your eyes and to really recall the happiest moments of your life, and to recall all your achievements and obstacles you have uh, faced or achieved before, and you can find that all these resources you got, and the things you eat, the air you breathe, and the water you drink, all of these resources you got, all of the resources human civilization got, is all from our mother nature. And nature is nourishes us and accept us in every conditions we face, and it support us in every challenges we may uh, we face. And um, this can really make people feel about the nature is really our mother, and it lets all the species in the world to connect with each other, and it um, hope all the species can live in a friendly way to each other, and so that in this process in this meditation we can really feel like the city we live or the um, the the ground we touch and the soil we stand is just the gift of the Mother Earth, and all the uh, DNA in this earth and all the species in the earth is just a miracle from from nature. So we must protect all of this and to have a livable future for ourselves and for all other species, and to connect with the people who need help the most, but not to um, to aim to be the most rich people or more rich, most so-called successful people, but to connect with most vulnerable people in the society and try to have the connections with them to build a really solid civil society. And this civil society can make the democracy to come back and to make the world better in every um, challenge, challenges we face.